I think today, most people who own a company or who are an executive level, I think they've been pretty sensitized. A lot of these major attacks are highly publicized. They're online, they're in the news. People know about the United Healthcare attack. People know about a lot of these things that have occurred. So we're finding that a lot of executives are now sensitized. And for the most part, there is somewhat of a cultural shift among executives. So we're not finding a lot of executives who walk away from these things. They're very aware of what they need to do to put the preventative measures in place to protect their most valuable assets, which is their business.
Welcome to B2B Synergy, the Power Partners USA podcast, your exclusive guide to discovering the potential of B2B partnerships. I'm Alan Armijo, owner of Power Partners USA business-to-business introduction and referral service. Our members are B2B professionals who team up to provide each other repeat referral business or collaboration. Today's episode shines a light on Fernando Lara, owner of Singular Security and new Power Partners USA member. Fernando, I'm really looking forward to this conversation in order to give everyone a firsthand understanding of your work in corporate cybersecurity and compliance certification, support solutions, and services. So welcome to Power Partners. How are you doing?
Thank you, Alan. It's nice to be here. I appreciate the opportunity of putting this podcast together.
Can you explain what Singular Security provides as a cybersecurity company for organizations?
Sure. So since 2005, Alan, we've been helping organizations build, manage, and maintain what we refer to as an information security management program. And this has been based on our proven process. And we have done this pretty much across the US and into Canada. And that's been our primary focus since 2005.
How would you explain your services to the layperson to understand the importance of the specialized services you provide?
Well, we explain it in a number of ways. If it's someone who is a non-technical, you use the term the layperson, then I really try to simplify it by basically letting them know that, we're end-to-end and, helping you build a defined information security management program would encompass really four key areas. One, your endpoints, and that includes anything that touches your network, your systems, your servers, your laptops, even down to your network equipment like your printer or even maybe your phone system. The other area is your outward facing. All companies today rely on their website for revenue generation. So because the community or the cyber, or rather the hacker community has taken advantage of the outward facing, that's another area that we help prevent these type of data breaches. The third area is the security awareness training. Users today are one of the biggest vulnerabilities for any organization of any size. So we provide, security awareness for those individuals who need to understand the to-dos and not to-dos when working in a business environment. The fourth thing is the regulatory requirement. Today, regulation has become a mandatory issue for pretty much all verticals, particularly in the healthcare, finance, manufacturing, the utility market. And that's how I would explain to the layperson or the non-technical person.
So it sounds very comprehensive as what you do with when you go into, is it usually typically a corporate environment or an educational environment?
Yes. Yeah. So, when it involves or encompasses an information security program, depending on the environment, we look at what they have in place. Do they have any written policies or procedures? What is their overall strategy? So we help them understand, what is required to have a comprehensive set of strategies, process, and policies. And then we get into the broader coverage in terms of their personnel, what technologies and facilities they have in place. And all of this is intended to design, again, an information risk and protection of their most critical assets. And that's how we approach it from that perspective.
Okay, so this is different than IT managed services. You're focused on helping companies prevent cyber attacks, right? Getting hit with ransomware, cyber attacks, things like that, right?
That's correct. It's important to note today that it is still technologically and humanly impossible to protect your most critical assets 100% of the time. What you really need to do, and what we really make aware to most organizations, is that what they need to have in place is enough prevention and enough ability to try to stop any kind of cybersecurity breach or data theft that would have serious implications. So it's all about minimizing, the implications.
So I got a letter, notice of data breach from Ticketmaster. Okay, so they put specific unauthorized activity occurred between April 2nd, 2024 and May 18th on May 23rd. And then, they're basically telling me that Ticketmaster was breached and my information was compromised, correct? Because somebody obviously hacked them, right?
That's right. And so what Ticketmaster is doing is they're complying with a regulation. They had a data breach. They housed a lot of sensitive and personal information. And so they're required actually to then notify anyone who may have been impacted by this data breach. So that's required by them. What now needs to happen is the user, like in your case, you need to be much more concerned and much more aware of what's happening within your financial attributes, whether it's a credit card, bank statements, even to the extent of your insurance coverage, things of that nature, because if your personal information was compromised, that means people have access to utilize that to access any unauthorized areas like your bank statements, like your credit cards, as the two examples, and use it to their advantage, and you end up with the bill, essentially.
Okay, Singular Security can help prevent this, right?
We can help prevent it. Probably a good time to mention that historically, we only have serviced the company or the business. We have never sold, nor do we have a plan to sell directly to the consumer. So that's an important distinction. However, that being said, when we're in contract with any organization, if there's someone impacted because we have an agreement with this corporation, we can enable things like forensics investigation. But we don't do it for the consumer today, Alan.
No, I'm talking about your client. They would hire you to, because what is the cost to Ticketmaster? I've had this before with, I can't even remember. I've had 3. My mom has had 1 where their data has been breached. And they tell us, okay, go into this credit monitoring at no charge. But besides the hit to the brand, what are the costs that these companies without cybersecurity protection or awareness and compliance and that you're dealing with, what are you seeing?
Right. It's bad for their brand name, and it has serious implications from a financial, operational, and a legal aspect. So any organization, such as this case, Ticketmaster, they need to put enforcement, they need to put protective mechanisms in place to do everything they can to avoid these type of serious data breaches with their consumers. For the consumer themselves, they need to react or reply with monitoring their own financial and their own sensitive information. Unfortunately, when these data breaches occur by large organizations, they can only do so much. The data breaches occurred, they're required to notify you. At that point, then it's up to the consumer to start putting some kind of protectionism, if you will, of their viable data.
Right. And you can help with all that, right?
We can.
Okay. Because I wanted to distinguish what you do versus what happened recently with CrowdStrike in the news, where one day they wake up, Delta Airlines goes down, nobody can catch a flight, everybody's delayed, everybody's stranded. And I forget who else was affected by it, but it was as a business-oriented downtime. But that wasn't a hack, right? That wasn't anything that had to do with ransomware or a cyber attack, correct?
That's right. So the CrowdStrike incident that occurred on July 24th was really caused by what they publicized as a rapid response content update. And unfortunately, CrowdStrike did not execute this software update push effectively. Rather than staggering it out, they pushed it all at one time. Well, this update unfortunately had an undetected error. And what that caused is all these crashes of machines running on a Windows or a Microsoft Windows type of operating system, and that caused the worldwide outage. But this outage was not the result of a security incident or a cyber attack. That's an important distinction. That being said, what it really calls for is more of a multi-layer approach for organizations to protect not only the employees, but also people working at that company and their environment itself.
So am I correct in saying that singular security, you have redundancies that would override if that you didn't really have a problem with any of your clients, right?
No, fortunately, one, we provide these services. To be specific, CrowdStrike, what they are is an endpoint detection and response solution. And there are half a dozen of those guys, maybe more in this market. CrowdStrike happened to be the largest one. That's why they were so, ubiquitous. I mean, they were installed across the globe and so many millions of Microsoft Windows machines. And that's what really caused the outage and the worldwide chaos, if you will. But we provide EDR solutions via our services. So we don't sell per se solutions. We help monitor utilizing EDR for businesses.
So CrowdStrike pushed up an update that knocked down all those computers. But in your case, you have multiple. Can you explain the multiple layers that help protect? Because CrowdStrike does one thing. It monitors like abnormalities in the system and identifies them, right?
So this gets into a discussion that we've known for years. It's a best practice method where what you do when we provide services or solutions, we always advise the client is one tool will not serve all its purpose, right? It's important not to rely on one tool, in other words. It's important to have a distribution of tools. So whatever one tool misses, the other tool theoretically will pick up. A multi-layer approach is very similar in that you have EDR, but something else to back up EDR in case something gets through. So that's what referred to as a multi-layer solution. The incident with CrowdStrike just reminded us that that's key because too many people go down this path of relying on one tool. CrowdStrike is a very good company. They're very good at their sales and marketing, and they convince people that they can do the job itself. The reality is no one tool can do the complete job. You need a multi-layer in order to really manage these implications that are caused by ransomware attacks. As an example.
Okay, so just for the fun of it, I want to just list the bullet points of the things that you guys provide. Bear with me here. 24/7 SOC, continuous monitoring and response for endpoints, networks, clouds, and cloud SIEM. Dark web monitoring, security and corporate compliance awareness training, vulnerability assessment and patch management as a service, penetration testing, sensitive data assessment service, email threat protection, data loss prevention, authentication services for IT/OT systems and critical infrastructure, incident event response, oversight, support, and forensic services, business continuity and disaster recovery program support, phishing and social engineering campaign services. All of those, would that be considered also multi-layering, or like that's the package you provide to keep people safe from these like ransomware and cybersecurity attacks?
Correct. Yeah. So all those layers you talked about is really more of an end-to-end type of solution. So earlier I talked about, we cover, right, the endpoints and anything connected to the network, the outward facing like the websites, the human layer like the users, and then of course the regulatory layer that's required for like HIPAA or NIST or PCI as an example. So yes, it is an end-to-end multi-layer approach. A lot of the solutions and services you mentioned, we provide a package. And one of the reasons we wanted to join our partners is that we're now wanting to see how we can then help the small business community, because historically we've been more in the mid and the enterprise. So we want to bring that mid and enterprise capability to the small business environment. Because those are the ones, though that particular market level is being hit pretty hard by various ransomware attacks and data breaches.
Right, right. And how do we qualify those companies for you?
In the world of, I'm going to use the term cybersecurity or compliance risk management, it is not vertically aligned, right? All businesses need, to a degree, cybersecurity and compliance risk management coverage. So it is across the board in terms of any verticals. What we are seeing today, though, probably the biggest challenges or the most visible verticals are that of healthcare, finance, retail, e-commerce, just to name a few. And then, of course, you've got manufacturing, utilities, and of course, the gaming environment as well. So this is something that all businesses have to take in consideration, without a doubt.
Would it require a minimum number of users, though, for you to be involved?
Good question. So today, our smallest clients is about 30 to 35 users. However, a lot of these clients are in that size or in the manufacturing, and they've got pretty large contracts with the likes of a Boeing or Raytheon, for example, or General Dynamics. So they have to have these type of service solutions because their customers demand it. So it's not so much the size, but the purpose and the reason that they would need it. For companies who are small, but they have big clients who demand for them to maintain their risk, that would be a good potential target or a good potential client for us.
So like in the legal services, like you mentioned, healthcare, doctors, dentists, things like that?
Yes, yes. And their offices could be very, very small. And depending on the size, could determine the cost, could determine how we would implement things. It all works the same. It's just that it really has to be tailored to that environment based on their business need, if you will.
Okay. So we covered a lot. Just to summarize, what is the biggest problem you solve for your clients?
Well, today, the two biggest challenges for most companies is one, the user. So in other words, security awareness training. As I mentioned, the employee or the user, and it could be at any position level, whether upper management, executive management, middle management, or employee level, they today become sometimes the biggest vulnerabilities. You know, sometimes they receive emails or they receive phone calls where a cyber hacker is attempting some kind of phishing or vishing, we refer to, in order to trick them into allowing them to enter in the environment, whether to plant a ransomware attack or to try to steal information. So the security awareness is the first single challenge by most companies. The second one, depending on who you talk to, is also a huge challenge, and that's ransomware attacks. Ransomware attacks today are very profound, very prevalent. It's affecting just about every vertical in the business environment. And those are the two biggest challenges that we can help organizations address, but really of any size. But that's what we're seeing today in the market.
Okay. So just like, I mean, you said like nothing's 100%, but how do you gauge that your multi-layer approach, your services are working for somebody? Like, have you not had ransom attacks in any of your clients? Have you not been hacked?
Oh, yeah. I mean, how we gauge it is really one of the services you mentioned, continuous monitoring. That's how we gauge it, because continuous monitoring is the process of monitoring a business environment 24/7. And it comes directly from our security operating center. And so we deploy our ability to continuously monitoring for any potential threats or any potential attempt to cause a theft, within that given environment. And from that, we're able to determine, what are some of the risks. In addition, as it relates to the regulatory requirement, because many companies contracted with large customers, their customers expect and demand, and often are contracted with those smaller companies or mid-sized companies to maintain good risk tolerance level. Because they're considered third party, it's important that they maintain good risk level so that, one, they don't have a problem with data theft that could impact their customers, and two, they maintain their business relationship with their customers.
So let's talk a little bit about some of these, like HIPAA, in the sense that everybody's medical records seem to be at risk today because everything's online. I think I even got one of these data breaches from my doctor, what are the legal ramifications? Who's policing the fact that my records are out there somewhere on the dark web now, maybe?
Well, the first responsibility really is on the user. Protecting your personal healthcare information is very important. And the way you can do that is that anytime you visit a doctor's office or a hospital, you probably notice that they have you sign a number of forms. One of them are HIPAA rules about privacy and security mechanisms, or security, which is designed to protect you from any kind of theft of your personal healthcare information. But it then becomes the responsibility of that healthcare provider to provide or enable any kind of prevention mechanisms to protect as much as possible your healthcare information. Healthcare information is utilized by the bad acting community to acquire unauthorized access to medications or medical equipment to sell on the black market. So really the policing should be done by the healthcare provider that is regulated by the HIPAA laws, security and privacy rules.
And where do you come in?
We implemented those rules. So for healthcare, for example, a number of our clients are healthcare providers. And so would be provided the tools, the process, any procedures that they need to have in place as they provide those services. We also do what's called third-party risk assessment. So any healthcare who is in contract with a third party, we can assess that third-party provider to provide what their risk posture is to the healthcare provider themselves. And we have a platform and tools that our healthcare customers can utilize to achieve that.
Great. Okay, as a reminder to everybody, Power Partners USA is a B2B introduction service. We introduce business professionals to each other who can provide each other repeat leads or referrals or do business collaboration. We are targeting this podcast, Fernando, to your Power Partners to bring you more repeat referral business. It seems like managed IT service providers, anybody, IT professionals, anybody in technology would be a Power Partner for you, correct?
Absolutely, because the distinction between us and an IT provider is they are providing what we refer to as NOC related services, right? They're the network operating center for their customers. Their job is to maintain good business continuity, that their network is performing well, that their systems are performing well, and all the applications running on those systems are performing well so that the business can conduct their business and have productivity and business continuity. We are much more narrow and more surgical. We're on the security operating side or the SOC side, where we then do the continuous monitoring and any of the reconnaissance, if you will, in terms of making sure that the businesses maintain continuity by avoiding any kind of data theft, data breach, or any kind of ransomware attack.
Right. So it's with those professionals, IT in general, it's more of a collaborative approach if you can work with the same client, correct?
Yeah, I mean, for an MSP provider, as we explained, we can work in conjunction or we can work directly with a client. It all depends on, what the client needs. And if it's the MSP's partner or rather the client, we will definitely work with the MSP to make sure that we're providing the services and there's no real overlap. In addition to any other partner, whether it's a CPA firm or a financial services firm or just a business advisory firm, we can also work with them to make sure that their clients are being serviced.
Okay. For like a small guy, would insurance help if they did, there's cybersecurity insurance? Is that something you offer? Is that something that is applicable? Well,
you're referring to cyber liability coverage, for example?
Yeah.
Really, For example, using Ticketmaster, if they have cyber liability insurance, they probably do, protects them from any of these legal or financial implications. Someone's information is breached and utilized that is harm to that user can, sue the company, right? Which could run into hundreds and maybe millions of dollars. So Ticketmaster probably and should have some kind of cyber liability insurance coverage.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting. But you can't just buy insurance and not have any protection.
You can buy cyber liability insurance in the event that there is a loss. However, you need to have preventative measures in place to avoid that loss.
That's what I mean is like they would need your services to even make that insurance viable against a claim.
That's correct. So when you go out and you want to apply for cyber liability coverage, there's a series of questions, or there's a questionnaire. They are requirements. The cyber liability coverage company or insurance firm wants to know what prevention measures do you have in place. What the insurance companies use that as a qualification. So lacking these preventative measures may disqualify you from the insurance company providing a policy or a coverage to you. So to avoid that, companies like ourselves can work with the customer or the company to make sure these got these preventative measures in place that would then enable them to be qualified to receive liability coverage from an insurance firm.
Okay. All right, let's talk a little bit about the future. And in my experience, technology has always been a rapidly changing industry. And like I used to think like every 5 years there's a big development. Now it's like every year it seems like there's something new. In your experience, what are some emerging trends shaping the future of cybersecurity and protection from hacking? How's your company adapting and staying ahead of these developments?
What we maintain is taking the effort, getting ourselves educated, keeping a close pulse on new emerging technologies that are designed to combat and address any new emerging attacks. New emerging attacks are going to continue to evolve. As new emerging technologies come out to combat new emerging attacks, people are going to get a lot more sophisticated. They're going to figure out workarounds. They're going to figure out the tools to be able to address any new emerging technology. So it is a evolving and a continuous ongoing method that we do at Singular Security to stay ahead of it. So that's what we do. The other part we do is that we work to establish a cultural mind shift. Often it's not so much the bad actor, but the user or the employee themselves that causes a lot of these data breaches and allows these ransomware attacks to come in. So we spend a good deal of time of educating, training with the intent of really having a cultural mind shift within that company to be much more aware of some of these dangers so that they can avoid a lot of the implications that are caused by these attacks.
Right. What are some of the misconceptions or misunderstandings that people in general, like say a CEO might have about why they do or do not need your service?
I think today, most people who own a company or who are an executive level, I think they've been pretty sensitized. A lot of these major attacks are highly publicized. They're online, they're in the news. People know about the United Healthcare attack. People know about a lot of these things that have occurred. So we're finding that a lot of executives are now sensitized. And for the most part, there is somewhat of a cultural shift among executives. So we're not finding a lot of executives who walk away from these things. They're very aware of what they need to do to put the preventative measures in place to protect their most valuable assets, which is their business. So I think today people get it.
So there's a shock value. They know what's could happen if they get hit.
Yeah, they want to avoid that shock value.
Yeah. Do you have any checklists or reference guides that might be helpful to prospects in working with you or us to help?
First of all, we do have a very helpful ebook guide. We call it the Cyber Threat Hunting. And what this guide provides is a good mapping and explains the proactive approach that people can do to detect and prevent cyber attacks. So we can make that available to anyone. All they need to do is send an email to info@singularsecurity.com, and then we can respond with this guide. The second thing is, yes, we can provide consultation. We'll have one of our information security officers that can go through a consultation to understand what are the issues, what are the objectives, what they have in place. In addition,
Is there a cost for that?
no, it's a no-cost assessment. The other thing that we do at no cost is if there's an organization who really relies on their website to drive revenue, we will do a non-intrusive and a risk assessment of their web application landscape to see if we see any suspicious, what we call common vulnerability that maybe lie within it. If we discover something, then we go on a contractual basis and we do more in-depth testing of a company's internal environment and their external with their web applications.
Do you have anything we're forgetting?
No, only that as an announcement, we are rolling out pretty powerful ransomware preventative solution. It's very recent. We have installed it in some large enterprises. And the reason for that is that, again, getting back to the CrowdStrike scenario, they're a good endpoint detection and response technology. However, where they have fallen short is really preventing and stopping ransomware attacks. So what they do is they'll detect, they'll analyze, and then they'll alert or report, but they fall short of preventing or stopping ransomware attacks. So we're rolling out a solution that is designed to do that. It will work with EDR. It's not a competitor to EDR. However, it can work on its own. And it's one announcement that I wanted to talk about today during the podcast. And again, if anybody's interested, all they have to do is send an inquiry email to info@singularsecurity.com.
I appreciate your time. I really learned a lot. And even being in the IT industry, I was unsure about all of the services you provide, but I'm very clear on it now. It's easy for me to educate people about it through this podcast and get them to understand it's not something that is over everybody's head if they're not in the IT world.
Good. I hope I was able to achieve that during this call. So if you feel that way, then so do I. So
okay,
I have a better understanding today.
Okay, good. Well, thanks for your time, Fernando. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you, Alan.